Hello, I'm Sheinelle Jones, and welcome to our special Discover Black Heritage. We are spotlighting trailblazers and leaders in the Black community, starting with a sheriff who just made history. After decades of working in law enforcement, Dewana Witt is now Minnesota's first Black female sheriff. Here's NBC's Blaine Alexander with more.
Inside the Hennepin County Jail, Nate Johnson's free riders class has a special guest.
This isn't the end of the line for you.
Sheriff Dewana Witt. A few weeks on the job, it's not unusual to see her here, but what might surprise you is what she says.
I was that person who was afraid of the police, saw my brother's butt get kicked many times by the police.
It's why she says she never expected to find herself in a uniform.
What led you to law enforcement?
You know, I used to tell people it was an accident. I do tell people this is my purpose. Cindy?
If there is a conventional path to law enforcement, Sheriff Witt is far from it. Growing up in South Minneapolis with her 4 siblings, drugs and violence were always nearby. By age 15, Dewana was a mother.
I saw myself as a statistic.
As a teenage mother?
As a teenage mother, as someone growing up in poverty. My mother had a drug addiction. My father was an alcoholic.
And with that environment came a very early mistrust of police.
A man was shot. He was shot by the police, actually. And I could have been all of 4 or 5 years old.
But 24 years ago, something changed when Sheriff Witt, then working for a nonprofit, happened to take a tour of the jail.
At the end of that tour, they talked about how they needed women in the field and women of color.
She applied on a whim and got hired as a detention deputy. That's when her views started to shift.
I started having more encounters with law enforcement, men and women, and getting to know them as individuals. You know, my barriers that I had, they were falling.
Over the next 2 decades, she worked her way up through the ranks. Then, in January,
according to the law and the best of my ability,
Sheriff Dewana Witt became the first woman to lead her department and the first Black female sheriff in the state of Minnesota. A milestone that's all the more meaningful when you consider where she is.
Black law! Black law!
Hennepin County, the very county where George Floyd was killed. The street where he died was just a block away from the community center where Sheriff Witt grew up.
You watched that video along with the rest of the world.
Yes.
The big difference, of course, is that you were watching it happen in your own community.
That was probably one of the most difficult times of my entire life. It ruined a lot of things that had been done to make this profession better and to bridge the gap within communities.
She says the hits came from all sides.
People would look at me as a Black woman, as a Black person in a uniform, like, what are you doing? You know, being called names from traitors to Auntie Tammy instead of Uncle Tom.
These were fellow Black people that would look at you and wonder why you were in law enforcement.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you're on the wrong side. And that's, I'm sorry, I can never talk about this without getting a little choked up. But if people would have just known the story of like what it takes to do this job as a Black person and to have people say those things to you, it was hurtful.
Despite it all, she says she never thought about leaving the job.
I knew that I needed to be a person who could interpret, if you will, what people were seeing, because everybody couldn't understand that.
For Sheriff Witt, then a major, that meant talking to people, protesters, face to face, even when other officers warned her not to. A step toward building trust.
That we had a sense of safety and security.
Last November, one of her very first visits after winning the election was the jail. And as she walked among the inmates, Sheriff Witt got a big surprise.
People were standing up and applauding me.
When you walked
and they're
in.
like, that's our sheriff, y'all. You know, I realized that I'm a symbol of hope for some people and hope for change. So I got a lot to live up to, but I'm ready for it.
Now to another trailblazer who's breaking barriers. Charlie Mitchell is the first Black chef in New York City's history and only the second Black chef in the country to earn a prestigious Michelin star. Craig Melvin stopped by his restaurant, Clover Hill in Brooklyn, to discuss his groundbreaking achievement.
The chef behind this popular Brooklyn restaurant is now being celebrated for more than fine dining. Charlie Mitchell is the first black chef in New York City to be awarded a Michelin star and just the second black executive chef in the country to achieve that honor.
I wanted to always, plant my feet here and be a serious New York City chef, so that was always a goal of mine.
And look at you now.
Yeah.
Dreams come true.
Yeah.
Mitchell was born and raised in Detroit and developed a passion for food and cooking from his grandmother.
I think the thing that stuck with me the most is she used to this whole fried fish, whole fried bass all the time when I was younger, and I think that stood out the most.
Head on?
Always.
Oh. He attended culinary school for a few months, but preferred on-the-job training instead.
I ended up Googling restaurants in the metro area, got my first real job, and in that kitchen is where I was wow, I love the way they work. I love how professional it is. I'm using ingredients I've never had, never learned about.
Years of experience in world-class restaurants like 11 Madison Park eventually led him to this quiet street in Brooklyn Heights. When Clover Hill opened 1 year ago, he became its executive chef in charge of creating the menu. Mitchell's team plates an 8-course tasting menu that regularly changes with the best seasonal foods available.
I guess it's challenging, but we're always changing something, or we're always trying to make the dish the best version of itself, right? So we may tweak it every day for 2 weeks straight if we have to get it to be a perfect dish.
That quest for perfection did not go unnoticed. When Michelin announced it starred restaurants in October, not only did Clover Hill earn a star in its first year, but Chef Mitchell picked up the award for Best Young Chef.
That was a complete surprise when they announced that, and I was just humbled,
Were you aware at the time of the historic implications?
I was not at the time. You always think so many people have come before you. You just assume that someone has already done this, it doesn't cross your mind that you may be the first or second to do really anything.
Especially here in New York City. Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think there aren't more people who look like us as executive chefs in fine dining restaurants like this?
You don't make a lot of money as a young cook, so I think a lot of times we're chasing a very different American dream than to kind of put up with these aggressive environments that are often led by people who don't look like us.
I tasted some of the iconic dishes that earn this unique place in the food world. I'm going to come around and try this here, although it's almost too pretty to touch. Including a shark fin flounder and a spicy tapioca. But this is nice, and it's subtle. And a Japanese mackerel.
We dry age it, we hang it a little bit, and then we finish it in a little bit of beeswax so that it retains moisture.
When people leave your restaurant, what do you want them to take away?
I want them to kind of be, excited or inspired about food. That's something that is very important to us.
Up next, Al Roker visits Sesame Street to meet the talented puppeteer blazing a trail on the iconic show. And later, meet the artist on a mission to bring more inclusivity to Hollywood. We'll be right back. We're back with Discover Black Heritage. My fellow third-hour co-anchor Al Roker paid a visit to the set of Sesame Street and spoke with a woman making history as the show's first full-time black female puppeteer.
As the song goes, can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? We found out from their newest puppeteer, Megan Piphus Peace, who's been blazing trails, just like the show always has. Well, we're here sitting on the stoop at 123 Sesame Street. What are your early memories of this program?
All of the characters here were my friends. I watched them every day. I had a personal connection with the street. When I was 3 years old, I had a Sesame Street birthday party. We had a Sesame Street cake, and an Elmo walk-around character came out, and Big Bird.
Those friends would help her find her passion.
When I was 10 years old, I had just changed to a new elementary school and had to make new friends. I was super shy. I went to a puppetry conference with a few members from my church. I was exposed to women ventriloquists, and I saw myself being able to open up just like them and make something come alive in that moment. So I went home, I told my parents I wanted to become a ventriloquist.
Megan's mom checking out VHS tapes from the library for her daughter, and Megan watched them over and over, starting to mimic them.
I took my puppets to school and was cracking jokes during lunch break, and my teachers noticed and asked if I would perform in front of the whole school. That was my very first performance, and what made me know in that moment that that's what I wanted to do forever, to hold the attention of kids anywhere from 3 years old to 12 and make them laugh and smile. That became my joy.
That joy continuing as she performed, seeing an opportunity to express herself.
You're the valedictorian. That means you're the first to go. You're so little, you don't go very far.
Becoming known as the valedictorian ventriloquist.
We all will go far, if we are willing.
And go far she did, even taking her act on America's Got Talent.
A few stolen moments is all that we share.
After graduating from Vanderbilt with degrees in economics and finance, she spent 7 years in commercial real estate until
I found the Instagram page of the performer who does Abby Kadabi, Leslie Carrera Rudolph, and I just fangirled. I said, oh my God, I love your character and what you do with her. She DM'd me and said, you are a gift.
What was it like when you first heard from Megan?
There was something super warm and heartfelt about it. And so I went and I Googled her, and I was blown away. I just felt like it was magic. I know that sounds really corny, but I do feel like it was a meeting of the hearts.
Leslie was so impressed with Megan's talents, she became her mentor, sharing her material with Sesame's producer, who invited Megan to audition. Last September, making history as the street's first full-time black female puppeteer.
I immediately entered the imagination of my childhood.
I still wish I could figure out what kind of job I want to do when I grow up.
And entering the imagination of a lot of kids with 6 3/4-year-old Gabrielle.
What is it like being here on Sesame Street?
Oh, it's so much fun. The weather is always great. It's always sunny. You know, you should really consider being a meteorologist here.
Megan, hoping her path to the pinnacle of puppetry inspires others.
My goal is just to inspire girls to achieve whatever dream they have, no matter their background, their zip code, or no matter the color of their skin.
Sesame's executive producer believes representation is important.
We want people to be able to see characters on screen and feel like they see themselves.
Those friends that inspired her as a child are her best friends today.
Who are some of your friends? Tell me about them.
Well, I got lots of friends. I got Prairie Dawn, Abby, Elmo, Cookie Monster, Gonger, Grover, Big Bird.
So nice to meet you, Gabrielle.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you too, Mr.
High five. Yeah!
Woo! Woo! Fist bump. Boom.
Boom.
Thank you, Al. This year is also the 50th anniversary of hip hop. Craig recently met up with legendary hip hop pioneer Grandmaster Flash and got a sneak peek of the Universal Hip Hop Museum. Take a look.
They are a part of music history. Run DMC, Jay-Z, Missy Elliott, and the new generation of stars, including Kendrick Lamar. Their success built on the shoulders of legends like Grandmaster Flash. He's one of the earliest pioneers of hip-hop and a champion of the Universal Hip-Hop Museum being built in the Bronx, New York. We met up with him at a temporary exhibition just across from the site of the Future Museum.
We're sitting here, you know, just a few feet away from this amazing new museum devoted to a genre that you helped create. How does that make you feel?
Takes me back 50 years. You know, we get a couple of shopper carts and take the speakers and the crates of records and go to the nearest park and just play, you know, and then to get here, it's very humbling.
Don't push me.
Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five were pioneers of this new form of music in the 70s and 80s and became the first hip-hop group inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007. For Flash, it was a dream that started in his childhood home.
My biggest sisters was playing anything from disco to funk to pop to rock to Latin. You know, so I was really lucky to grow up with this kaleidoscopic view of music.
Flash would help develop DJing techniques used around the world. Scratching, looping, sampling, innovations that help make hip-hop the most popular genre of music. Hip-hop, the music, the movement will soon have a new home. A 2-level universal hip-hop museum being built in the Bronx, set to open next year. With a 52,000 square foot space with interactive exhibits, a performance space, a radio station, and a restaurant.
When people come in here, they feel like they're walking into the evolution of hip-hop history.
Rocky Bucano is the museum's executive director. Why is remembering hip-hop, the music and the culture, why is that such an important thing?
Well, it's super important because this culture was created by Black and brown kids from the projects, from the hood. This culture has saved so many kids' lives by giving them an outlet to become something.
The memorabilia throughout the current exhibit is an homage to that struggle and success.
Because it's a youth movement. South Africa, South America, no matter where you go, the youth have the same issues. And this music speaks to them.
Music that spoke to young kids 50 years ago, inventing the music they needed to find their voices. Do you ever listen to hip-hop now and you think, this is not what I intended?
I'm happy. I have to be totally, because the way that I see this here is something that is loved by so many people has to change. It has to go through its changes and do different things.
Okay.
It has to. Otherwise, it's stagnant, and it doesn't grow.
But you kind of created it.
I didn't say that. You did.
Coming up, 3 artists on a mission to bring more inclusivity to Hollywood. Plus, we'll introduce you to a couple making waves in the restaurant industry. We're back right after this. Welcome back. The 9B Collective is the first Black-owned concept art studio ever created, and they've designed looks for major films like Marvel's Black Panther and Guardians of the Galaxy. NBC's Steve Patterson gives us an inside look.
home? There is a secret weapon in blockbuster films like Black Panther and Wakanda Forever.
I am queen of the most powerful nation in the world!
And other Marvel productions like Moon Knight and Guardians of the Galaxy.
We thank you, Guardians, for putting your lives on the line.
Not to mention countless costumes, video games, TV shows, and the other worldly places our favorite characters live in. No matter the vision, it all starts with a digital pen. Mike Kawandi and Phil Boutte, along with his childhood friend, actor Aldous Hodge, formed the 9B Collective.
What's a concept artist? We're the first stab at visuals for what characters or environments or creatures or props or whatever it is can be.
And we're basically trying to get things to be approved by a director or producer before they have to go and build every single thing, right? Everything that's designed starts with a drawing first.
How many drawings do you do before they're shooting? Many, and many that the general public doesn't even get to see. There's a lot of work to figure out who this person is or what they look like or why they're wearing what they're wearing or why they're making these choices, visually.
Phil helped create costumes for Madonna's 3 world tours. Mike helped create characters like Ahsoka Tano on the Mandalorian TV series. And they both have been drawing since they were kids, saying they quickly found they were outliers in the industry.
I was like, I don't see anyone else who looks like me doing this.
I've been doing, costume and character and stuff like that from 2007. The first time I sat next to another Black artist doing my job was 2019. And that's even after Black Panther, right? Ruth Carter was my first Black boss.
I hope through my example, this means that there is hope.
Ruth Carter was the first Black woman to win an Oscar in 2019 for her costumes in Black Panther.
How difficult is it to sort of change minds?
Always I'm a glass half full guy, but I'm also a realist, and this change needs to happen a little bit faster, and that's exactly why we're here, trying to do what we do.
What is it like for people of color to be doing the job that you do, and really just for artists and people in the industry to find work?
So it's really rare, and I think also it's another thing that is not really pushed in our culture to have that as a creative outlet. So that's another part of 9B is like showing up to school and informing the students and letting them know that this is a possible and viable option for a career.
We notice that often, especially people of color, get hired for what they've done, not for their potential. So we flipped that. We're hiring people for their potential and not just what they've done. They just need an opportunity.
And the silver lining of the opportunity, Alice says, is a growing community.
We get to have a freedom to fully be who we are in our own space, in a safe space, without having to deal with cultural negligence.
The 9B artists really do make magic with those pens, turning details about ordinary me into a huge surprise.
Who's this?
Oh,
Where you at? What? Is that me?
Yeah.
Did you draw that? Look at that. The color came from Earth, but then also from Michigan State. Up here, you have your wife, dog, and cat.
Seeing this and hearing what you put into making me, which is weird. It's still weird to look at me right now. I get it. I get it a lot more. Did a really good job.
Thanks, Steve. Up next, a couple's incredible story of resilience. Stay tuned for more. We're back with a story about a couple making waves in the restaurant industry. Kaval and Rhea Graham opened their Caribbean restaurant during the pandemic, and it's now one of the hottest spots in Brooklyn. I recently paid a visit to find out their recipe for success. Kaval and Rhea Graham are living a life they never could have imagined.
I love hospitality. I never thought that I would have my own restaurant. But as we look back, we kind of see that every step that we took was actually leading us to this moment.
Today, they are the parents of 3 young children and will celebrate 5 years of marriage. But it's their journey to this point, running Kokomo, a popular pan-Caribbean restaurant with Indian and Asian flavors that combines their passion for food and hospitality. Clearly, you both had some kind of restaurant background.
Started off in nightlife and then became roving chefs, me and the guys that I had a group with.
At the time, I was a marketing manager for a Caribbean restaurant as well.
They were soon married and hesitantly decided their next move together would be a restaurant. So they took to social media, documenting everything about acquiring and opening a restaurant. As they were just about to open, the pandemic hit. Against all odds, they officially opened in the summer of 2020. How challenging was it?
I would say it was like mental warfare because you really did not know what to expect. But I think because we were so open about our feelings to our social media, people wanted to genuinely support.
Something that's very inspirational because Rhea was a part of every step during pregnancy. It motivated me to even work harder.
The couple describes the menu as elevated Caribbean fare, served up in an atmosphere that feels like the Caribbean.
I would say if you're looking for a vibe, come here.
We represent all different parts of the Caribbean. We definitely appeal to all ethnicities, whether it's Afro-Caribbean, Latin Caribbean, Asian Caribbean.
Did you get inspiration for different recipes? I mean, how did you do it?
We were very passionate about bringing out things that we grew up on, tapping into our Caribbean heritage.
Do you feel like you are blazing a trail?
Real trailblazers for us are the grandmas, man, because there's nothing like a Caribbean grandma in that kitchen showing her stuff. And now we're just trying to modernize it and just make it into something fresh and new.
Some of their hottest Caribbean dishes are on flatbread.
Island pasta flatbread on any given day, because it's something that we reinvented, and I think everybody comes in and they can't get that nowhere else. It's served with shrimp, oxtail, chicken.
Once we saw that brick oven, we knew we had to do an ode to Brooklyn by having a brick oven pizza crust. And then we tap on top of it a tomato confit sauteed shrimp with ackee, which is the national fruit of Jamaica.
I had to give the food a try.
So this is our Rasta balls.
Okay.
Croquette fried Italian Alfredo sauce.
Ooh.
That we infuse with some jerk seasoning.
Ooh.
Aioli on top.
Can I try it?
Of course. The flavors burst in your mouth.
Oh my gosh. This alone would have me coming back. As they embrace this family-run business, they reflect on this moment in time.
Everything that you need to succeed is within you.
We come from very humble beginnings. Our parents struggled. I know how hard, I know how hard they worked to leave a path for myself and how hard we as parents worked for us to be where we are. I take none of it for granted. And you can achieve anything you want as long as you believe in yourself.
That's it for our Discover Black Heritage special. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Today All Day.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.